if and when the test isn't done properly, when a dangerous car is certified as good to drive and then sold to an unsuspecting member of the public. Paul Murphy takes up one such story for us.
When Dubliner Esther Woodley bought this car last September from a garage, she was reassured by two things.
I felt I could trust the garage, and also I felt the very fact that this car, getting fully serviced and whatever little small things were being done, was going through for an NCT cert. This was the reason I bought this car.
In September, when Esther Woodley collected this 2017 Volkswagen Polo, it had a fresh NCT cert. It had been tested just 3 days before.
I would never have purchased that vehicle if it hadn't passed an NCT.
On the outside, everything looked perfect to the untrained and even the trained eye. But once you look under the car, it tells a different story. Unknown to Esther, the car had been badly damaged in an accident less than a year before she bought it and very poorly repaired.
There was a severe damage sustained to the offside front chassis leg, and then there was further damage sustained to the near side front chassis leg. This near side front chassis leg has been crushed, and there's some sort of crush damage to it that has been very poorly repaired. But this offside front chassis leg, this has been cut back around 12 inches back from the front of the chassis leg, and there is no welding there. We can see that somebody put a 1 or 2 spot welds on it and then used silicone to disguise the repair that should have been carried out.
The business that sold the car is the now defunct Premier Motors Auto Repairs, not to be confused with other entities of a similar name. It operated at JFK Road in Dublin, its former premises now occupied by an unconnected car business. The owner of Premier Motors Auto Repairs, a 33-year-old Dubliner, declined to be interviewed on camera. He acknowledged making repairs to Esther's car, but told Prime Time in a phone call that he wasn't sure whether the welding was done by his garage. He maintained repeatedly that the car was roadworthy because it passed an NCT.
There's nothing hidden here. It's very much visible that as we look up here, that should have been picked up during an NCT. I don't know how anyone could miss it. Don't know how anyone could miss this.
Esther's car is too dangerous to drive.
I would deem this vehicle very dangerous and a hazard to the person that's driving it, the occupants inside it, and other road users. If this was in a further accident, the front of this vehicle would collapse very quickly. The engine and gearbox would be pushed back into the firewall or the bulkhead of the vehicle, and that would cause injury to the occupants inside in the vehicle.
Whoever was inspecting the car must have had a blindfold on and been wearing boxing gloves, not to, a person that's supposed to be checking out these things to miss these. I mean, it just absolutely doesn't add up for me.
The owner of Premier Motors Auto Repairs told Prime Time that details of previous damage to a vehicle would have been written on the customer's receipt. However, here is a copy of the receipt he provided to Esther and signed by him. There's no mention of previous crash damage. In fact, in a text message prior to purchase, Premier Motors told Esther that the car is like new. Misleading her in this way would appear to be a clear breach of consumer law. Esther first became suspicious just after her new purchase because warning lights flashed repeatedly on her dashboard. Premier Motors promised to fix the problems but then abruptly stopped communicating. Esther visited their premises on JFK Road.
They were gone. There was new signage, new people, and it was just such a horrible sinking feeling. They disappeared. They completely disappeared.
Car buyers can do a check on a vehicle's history that usually costs around €30. Esther didn't do this.
If it was a private individual, I'd do a check and I'd probably get a mechanic or an engineer to come out and view the car. But the fact that I was buying from a garage, I did feel there was a certain safety in that. I felt there'd be a certain integrity with the garage and selling, they'd want business, they want return business.
Had she done a vehicle history check, the car would have been flagged as what is known as a Category C write-off.
If the vehicle sustained accidental damage that exceeds 100% of the market value of the vehicle, then that vehicle becomes a Category C.
Category C cars are allowed back on the road once repaired, but for the unscrupulous car dealer, it can be easy to deceive the average buyer about the condition of any vehicle. Complaints from the public relating to the motor trade are a significant focus for the state's Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. And if you've been misled by a dealer, what are your rights?
Well, the rights at the moment is you can go back to the trader and say, I've been misled, I want my money back, and ask them to take the car back. If that doesn't happen, then you can ring our helpline and make a statement, and we will then investigate. And if the facts back that up, then we will decide to bring a court case in the courts. We probably bring about 3 or 4, maybe 5 cases a year. It's a mixture of clocked cars, selling an unsafe car. We've also got convictions under that.
A conviction for selling a dangerous car is one thing. The severity of sentencing for that crime is another. And how often does a car dealer actually go to jail?
There have been a number of people who have got jail sentences, but up to now always been suspended. So
that presumably is a source of dissatisfaction for you?
Well, I won't comment on the decision of judges, but what I would say, somebody has sold a car they've deceived a consumer, if they've gone to the lengths where the car is unsafe, and that then is a societal issue because we're all travelling on the road with these unsafe cars. I think that's a crime that deserves quite a significant tariff in terms of jail time.
After Esther complained to NCT operator Applus that her dangerous car had passed the NCT, an NCT auditor, alongside an auditor from the AA, took her car for examination. They found numerous problems, including the faulty chassis legs, and said it shouldn't have passed the NCT. The flashing lights on the dashboard that had alarmed Esther should have rung alarm bells. So too, says Noel Marr, should the unsecured battery, which is an NCT fail.
There's nothing holding the battery in. The bracket is missing, the bolt that holds the bracket in is completely missing, but it could also cause a short, which could lead to a fire in the vehicle.
Applus has revoked the NCT cert, meaning that Esther cannot drive the car she bought for €7,500 plus her previous car as a trade-in. She can't chase the garage that no longer exists, so she wants Applus to compensate her.
You're required to have a valid NCT on a vehicle to get your car insured. I thought I had a valid NCT in a roadworthy vehicle, but I do feel that they're responsible for this. I would never have purchased that vehicle if it hadn't passed an NCT.
Applus declined to do an interview. In a statement, it said that last year it inspected over 1.7 million vehicles, that almost half failed the initial test, and over 128,000 were deemed unsafe to be driven from the test centre. It also said that we would urge anyone looking to purchase a second-hand vehicle to use a qualified mechanic to support them in the decision-making process.
I think the part that really I find very upsetting is, to my mind, the NCT and the RSA don't really hold themselves accountable or responsible for this. They try to put the onus back on, in my case, a purchaser to get a pre-purchase test with a mechanic. But at the same time, they're telling me that their mechanics are fully trained and they're uber trained going into an NCT centre.
Figures from the RSA, which supervises the NCT, show that pass rates vary significantly depending on the test centre. In 2023, 61% of cars tested at Abbeyfield and Dublin's Dean's Grange passed first time. At Tullamore, the figure was 60%. Whereas in Navan, only 45% passed first time. In Derrybioga in Donegal, it was 44%, and at the Cavan NCT Centre, 41%. So motorists had roughly a 50% better chance of first-time success at Abbeyfield's NCT Centre compared to Cavan's.
Well, I would think if I was the regulator that was, in charge of this, that would concern me. But the test is a valid test. You'd expect only random differences between centres, yes.
Regarding Esther Woodley's car, Applus has firmly rejected her request for compensation. She is now considering suing.
At the end of the day, I'm not forgetting about the dealer by any means, but the NCT are very responsible for passing that vehicle out. It's a public safety issue, a very serious public safety issue.
Paul Murphy reporting there. Well, shortly